Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The movie. Yummy begins. While cleaning a morgue room, Mike sees Dr. K and his assistant putting a body in the incinerator. However, when the two men leave, the cleaner hears a noise coming from inside and decides to open the furnace to see if the person is alive. At that moment, Mike is attacked and his face is hidden by the flames. A few weeks later, Michael drives to the Croft Clinic, accompanied by his girlfriend and his mother-in-law, both of whom are planning to have cosmetic procedures done cheaply. On the way, they pass through a forest, and Michael accidentally runs over a wild animal. Immediately, the couple gets out of the vehicle to check what has happened. And when they realize that the animal will not survive, Michael decides to put it out of its misery once and for all. Just then, another vehicle appears and hits the creature again, splashing a large amount of blood on Michael's shirt. After becoming very ill, Michael continues his journey until he arrives at the clinic, and Sylvia seems excited about having liposculpture. According to Janya, Dr. K is an excellent surgeon and is developing a new rejuvenation treatment. While walking through the clinic with Allison and Sylvia, Michael sees some blood-stained towels being taken to the laundry and starts to feel sick again. A few years ago, he dropped out of medical school because he couldn't stand the sight of blood, and his mother-in-law never forgave him for it. Sylvia's dream was to see her daughter marry a doctor, but Michael put a stop to those plans because of his condition. The young man went there to accompany Allison for her cosmetic surgery. Allison's goal with this surgery is to stop experiencing back pain and not have difficulty exercising. So, even though he prefers his girlfriend's natural body, Michael decides to support her decision and stays by Allison's side while she waits to be called to the operating room. When the operation is about to begin, Michael gets anxious and starts asking the nurses a lot of questions. Then, in an attempt to calm him down, Janya asks Daniel to take the young man on a tour of the hospital. But before continuing the tour, Daniel decides to stop by his room to take some medication. Just then, Michael hears a strange noise coming from the next room and decides to go there to find out what's going on. When he opens the door, he sees a woman strapped to a stretcher trying to get loose and realizes that she can't breathe. Concerned, Michael removes the mask from her face and almost gets bitten. Seeing the woman's bloody mouth, the young man turns away and Daniel appears to get him out of there. When he realizes that there is something very wrong in that hospital, Michael rushes to the operating room to get his girlfriend and get the hell out of there. Then, just as Allison was about to take the anesthetic, Michael appears and interrupts the procedure, saying that they need to leave. During an argument with one of the nurses, the young man ends up hurting his hand with the needle, and in a few seconds, the effects of the anesthesia spread throughout his body. At this point, Michael collapses and is taken to the restroom where he rests, while the zombie woman he helped free crawls through the corridors of the clinic. When he wakes up, the man realizes that he is tied up and despairs when he sees a shadow approaching from the other side of the curtains. Suddenly, Yanja appears and informs him that Allison is preparing for surgery. At that moment, Michael manages to convince the woman to let him go. And even though he's still a bit dazed from the sedation, he goes after his girlfriend. When he finds her, Michael finally has a chance to explain himself and says that there are very strange things going on in that place. Furious, Allison gets up from the operating table and says that she regrets having taken Michael with her. However, on the way to reception, the woman sees the nurses taking all the patients out and realizes that there really is something wrong. Worried, Allison goes out to look for her mother, and Michael goes after her. Suddenly, the building's power goes out, and the patients have to be carried up the stairs. However, before they can be taken to safety, a horde of zombies appears and begins attacking the people. While looking for her mother, Allison enters a room and sees a patient being devoured by the zombie doctor. When it comes across its new targets, the creature begins to crawl towards them, and Michael uses a metal tripod to try to ward it off. At that moment, while striking the monster, the young man accidentally destroys a light bulb and ends up being electrocuted. When she realizes that her boyfriend has been seriously injured, Allison runs over the zombie with a cleaning trolley and tries to wake Michael up in a hurry. At this point, the woman realizes that her boyfriend is no longer alive and runs away, frightened because the zombie is still after her. As the creature tries to reach her, Allison runs for help and ends up being cornered by a zombie woman who also starts chasing her. Terrified, the young woman bursts into an operating room where the doctors are in the middle of a procedure to remove fat from a patient. Soon after, the zombies appear and attack the medical team. And during the escape, Allison reverses the process of the machine that was sucking out fat, and all the lard that had been removed from the patient's body is put back in. Little by little, that man's belly begins to grow, and as soon as Allison leaves the operating room, his body explodes. After almost being devoured on the flight of stairs, William manages to escape and hides in the kitchen, where he finds Oksana hiding behind a counter. When he realizes that the woman is panicking and hopeless, William sits down next to her and tries to reassure her while trying to escape the corridors that are blocked by zombies. Allison enters a room to hide and finds Isabel with her face completely destroyed. The woman was having a procedure to remove wrinkles and expression marks. But when she heard about the zombie attack, the nurse in charge of removing the substance from the patient's face ran away. And now Isabel is unrecognizable. In an attempt to help her, Allison accompanies her to the kitchen. But when he sees the wounded woman, William realizes that she has been infected and holds the door. Desperate, Isabel runs off in search of water to wash her face, and Allison goes after her. On the way, the young woman finds her mother unconscious in one of the operating theaters and tries to wake her up. But Sylvia is dazed by medication and can't open her eyes. So, determined to get her mother out safely, Allison changes her clothes and drags the stretcher through the hospital corridors in an attempt to find the exit. At that moment, Daniel is hiding in a room using some medication to try and escape reality, as he doesn't want to deal with the attacks that are happening in the hospital. When she passes one of the rooms and sees a nurse devouring herself, Allison is struck by the scene and is frightened. At this point, she attracts the zombie's attention and is chased. Luckily, the creature behind her has no legs, and this slows down its movement. Desperate, Allison rushes over to the bed where her mother is lying and bursts into Daniel's living room. Seeing her mother's body falling to the ground, the young woman hurries to pick her up. But in the meantime, Sylvia is bitten on the leg. While the woman screams in pain, Daniel takes a fire extinguisher and hits the monster repeatedly until it destroys its head. At that moment, Michael, who no longer seemed to be alive, woke up in a daze without really understanding what had happened and walked among the bodies looking for his girlfriend, as he is still recovering from a blow to the head. The young man doesn't quite understand what is going on and ignores all the injured people he comes across. A few days ago, William arrived at the clinic to have cosmetic surgery on a very critical part of his body and was very pleased with the result. After removing the doctor's bandage, the man decides to wash the area in the sink but ends up hurting himself with the hot water. Immediately, Oksana hands him some burn ointment and lights a match so that they can read the composition written on the packaging. However, the young woman accidentally drops the match and William screams in despair when he sees that it is on fire. At that moment, Oksana runs to get the extinguisher and manages to put out the fire, but William ends up losing part of his body and decides to go in search of a doctor. However, when he opens the door, he comes across dozens of zombies and tries to get past them, only to be bitten and eaten. Seeing the man being eliminated, Oksana runs off to find help, and Michael enters a room full of animal bodies in glass jars. After a few drops of blood from infected people drip onto the glass, some animals come to life again and start chasing Michael. Frightened, the man flees the room and breaks into Dr. K's office where Yanya is also hiding. At that moment, Michael asks if they have seen his girlfriend, but the doctor says that she has probably been eliminated. However, the truth is that both Allison and her mother are still alive and are counting on Daniel's help to get out of that clinic. After passing through a horde of zombies without being seen, the trio enter the infirmary, and Yona begins to treat the wound on Sylvia's leg, caused by the bite. Hearing other people approaching, Daniel acts quickly and strikes Michael, believing him to be a zombie. Minutes later, he wakes up and is relieved to see that his girlfriend is fine. When he realizes that Sylvia is infected, Dr. K takes a tool to eliminate her, but Allison forbids him to go near her mother. Furious, the doctor pushes the young woman away and charges at her with an axe in hand. But the attack is interrupted when Sylvia splashes a large amount of blood on Dr. K. Now that everyone knows that he is also infected, instead of eliminating Sylvia, the doctor decides to look for a cure for the disease and everyone accompanies him to the pharmacy. To get there, they have to climb a few flights of stairs and on the way dodge the monsters they encounter. On the way, Yona comes across one of the infected animals and kicks it away. At that moment, the creature ends up on the first floor and the nurse ends up attracting the attention of all the zombies below. Soon after, the team manages to reach the pharmacy and Michael uses the knowledge he acquired at medical school to help the doctor produce an antidote. When the substance is ready, Dr. K uses it on the patient, but it still begins to transform. At this point, the doctor realizes that the drug hasn't worked as expected and takes a blood sample from Sylvia to give it a second try. When confronted by Yona about the origin of the pathogen, Dr. K reveals that he was conducting a secret experiment with enzymes to slow down aging. But the treatment had an adverse effect. According to him, patient 0 arrived at the clinic a few days ago and was being kept in isolation, but somehow managed to escape and infect dozens of people. Upon hearing this, Yanja revolts and strikes the doctor on the head with the axe. In her defense, She says that it would be better for him to lose his life as a man than as a zombie, since he was about to turn. The woman says that if he transformed, everyone would be at risk of being infected. So, Yanya thought it best to ensure his safety and the safety of the group. The problem is that the doctor was the only one capable of finding a cure for that disease, and now that he's gone, Michael decides to try and continue his work. With Yona's help, the young man produces a new version of the antidote and holds his mother-in-law's head so that the nurse can use the medicine. However, when the man approaches, Sylvia manages to break free and bites Yona's arm. Desperate, the nurse asks for help to remove the arm before the pathogen spreads throughout his body. But just as Daniel is about to do the job, the axe breaks. At that moment, Yona panics and sticks his arm inside the shredder. Hearing her co-worker's cries for help, Yanya rushes over to help him and unplugs the appliance. She then helps Yona make a bandage and hands him some pain-relieving medication. Seeing Sylvia trying to bite her own daughter, Michael realizes that there is no hope for her and picks up the axe to free her from that suffering. However, he is unable to strike his mother-in-law. So Allison picks up the tool and eliminates her own mother with a sharp blow to the head. When they realize that the zombies are approaching, the survivors try to go through the back door that leads to the terrace, but Daniel can't open it. Michael quickly builds an explosive to destroy the door, but Allison manages to open it, and he has to uninstall the bomb. While doing this, the young man is surprised by the arrival of a zombie that tries to devour him, but Michael uses a chair to try to keep the creature away. He then pushes the zombie over the chair, and the creature is finished. After getting rid of his enemy, Michael joins the rest of the team and discovers that they are planning to cross to the other building via a plank of wood. As she is the most fearless of her team, Yanya is the first to cross, and the other members of the group follow. But when his turn comes, Yona loses his balance and ends up falling several meters. Seeing the nurse's body exploding on the ground, Michael is shocked but has to run to the other building before the zombies reach him. After entering the building, the group realizes that the place is also full of infected people, and Yanja says that the only way to escape is through the garbage tunnel. When he enters the pipe, Michael can't stand the smell and starts to feel sick. Nevertheless, the man goes on and falls into the dumpster after slipping down the tunnel. At that moment, he sees a human head separated from the body and is startled, but soon realizes that there are no zombies around and signals the others to go down. While trying to find their way out, the 4 survivors hear a woman calling for help. So, Allison and Daniel confront a zombie to make way for her. Seeing the duo strike the creature, Michael is paralyzed and Yanja tries to find a way out of there. As soon as the zombie is eliminated, Oksana comes out of hiding and Yanja calls Daniel into a trap. The man knows that she was working with Dr. K to develop the biostimulator that started the outbreak. So, Yanja decides to get rid of him before this information is leaked. When Daniel enters the room, he ends up being bitten by a zombie that was deliberately placed there to infect him. Furious, the man attacks his co-worker and eliminates her. When Allison and Michael show up, he tells them that Yanya has been infected and follows them to the exit. Looking out of the window, the group sees several policemen standing outside, and Oksana runs towards them to ask for help. However, on seeing the woman leaving the clinic, the police come to the conclusion that she is contaminated and decide to eliminate the threat. The military then throw bombs into the hospital to finish off everyone inside, as this is the only way to ensure that there is no contamination. So, the trio decide to run away to try and find another way out and are chased by several zombies along the way. During his escape, Michael is bitten by a contaminated animal and kicks it back. Despite managing to eliminate the creature, the young man has already been infected, but he is still looking for a way out to try and save his girlfriend. When they reach the hospital tunnels, the trio run as fast as they can while being chased by zombies. Just then, Michael starts to feel pain and reveals that he has been bitten on the ankle. Not knowing if he'll make it out of the hospital alive, the man takes off the engagement ring he bought for Allison and asks his girlfriend to marry him. However, instead of answering the question, the woman is annoyed at being asked to marry her in such a situation and continues running. Hearing the approaching grunts, Michael gets up and goes after his girlfriend. On the way, Allison finds a way out and tries to remove the cover that connects the sewer and the surface. However, when he sees her trying to escape, the policeman orders his colleagues to use the wheel of the vehicle to prevent her from passing, and Allison gets her fingers caught. At this point, she realizes that she won't be able to escape and asks her boyfriend to run away with Daniel. But Michael refuses to leave his beloved behind and uses a small blade to remove her fingers. In this way, Allison manages to free herself and her boyfriend helps her to keep running until she finds a way out. After helping the woman reach the ladder, Michael and Daniel try to decide which of the two will run away with her as they need each other's help to reach the ladder. As he is infected, Michael decides to help Daniel up and gives Allison the key to his car. Just then, William appears and tries to bite him, but Michael manages to get rid of him and intends to use parts of the zombie as a rope to climb up. However, instead of pulling him up, Daniel closes the passage, at which point Michael realizes that he too has been infected as she is trying to hide from the police. Allison doesn't realize that her boyfriend has been abandoned, so she gets into her car and drives off with Daniel. Meanwhile, Michael tries to escape from a horde of zombies that appears and starts chasing him through the tunnels. After driving for a few minutes, Allison realizes that she is already a long way from the clinic and decides to stop the vehicle to rest, as she has lost all the fingers on her right hand. The woman is in a lot of pain and asks Daniel to take the wheel. However, at this point, she notices that the man is pale and looks very ill, so she begins to suspect that he has been infected. While examining Daniel's body, Allison realizes that he has been bitten in the stomach and tries to throw him out of the vehicle. At this point, the man attacks her. So, to defend herself, Allison takes a screwdriver and hits him in the back. After getting him out, the woman closes the door and starts the car. In the meantime, Daniel completes his transformation and gets up as a zombie. Determined to eliminate him once and for all, Allison reverses and runs him over before continuing on her way. When she realizes that the man is still alive, even after his body has split in half, Allison throws the car at him again and finishes him off once and for all. At this point, Michael is still trying to escape from the creatures, but he ends up trapped and realizes that one of the zombies trying to devour him has the bomb he built hanging from his neck. As he has no hope of surviving the attack, Michael decides to set off the explosive, and the manhole covers around him end up flying upwards. In this way, the zombies that were scattered throughout the sewer manage to get out, and Michael also manages to escape after surviving the explosion. While driving home, Allison sees zombies scattered everywhere. So, when Michael appears in the middle of the road asking for help, she mistakes him for an infected person and speeds up to run him over. When she realizes that she has just eliminated her boyfriend, the woman becomes desperate and loses control of the vehicle. At that moment, she crashed into a tree and lost her life instantly. If you like the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.